All right, folks, we are in the post-draft era now. It's time to get to my top 10 NFL power rankings in this 2018 post-draft edition. I'll count you down from number 10 all the way to number 1. Let's go to number 10 here on my list. And I just talked about them a few moments ago. The Pittsburgh Steelers. 2017, 13-3. You know what? Don't at me, Steelers fans. I got you here at number 10. And I could be being generous right now. First, like I said, Ben Roethlisberger says he expects to play 3 to 5 more years, which I think is impossible. I don't think it's going to happen. Ben Roethlisberger will probably retire within the next 2 years, 2.5 years, maybe 3. The era is closing with Ben Roethlisberger in Pittsburgh. Kind of like how the window is shutting with Eli Manning and the New York Giants. The Pittsburgh Steelers probably have 2 more years left to get a Super Bowl with Ben Roethlisberger. All right, so Martavis Bryant is gone, by the way. He's now a member of the Oakland Raiders. I actually think this is addition by subtraction, though. It's clear that Martavis Bryant just did not blend in that locker room. So, look, the Steelers are a good football team. And I think they'll be in the AFC playoff hunt, as always, because the AFC is watered down. The talent compared to the NFC just is not there. But my question about the Pittsburgh Steelers is the following. Can they take down Goliath, New England? Can they find a way to beat Jacksonville? The answer is no if you're basing off of the data from 2017. Pittsburgh was swept by New England and Jacksonville collectively last season. New England in the regular season, Jacksonville in the regular season, and the playoffs. Both times, by the way, against the Jacksonville Jaguars at Heinz Field. The Steelers have to figure out a way to beat Jacksonville. And they have proven to me so far that they can't. And like I said, the AFC is watered down. There are NFC teams that I like more than the Pittsburgh Steelers. You'll see in this top 10, I only have a handful of AFC teams. And especially when we get towards the top here, I'm definitely higher on the NFC teams. So James Washington, I think, will improve their vertical ability. I like Juju Smith-Schuster on the outside as well. In terms of the linebacking core here, Vince Williams, John Bostic, they'll hold the fort for now, but they have to find a long-term solution to losing Ryan Shazier. Maybe it's 5th-round rookie out of PSU, Marcus Allen, but I think he's more of a nickel linebacker. There's some talk that maybe he can be a big-time linebacker for the Steelers. Probably not. I mean, he was drafted as a safety there. So Joe Hayden had a bit of a resurgence at cornerback last year. I don't have all the faith in the world for him to perform at that level in 2018. I do like the addition of safety Morgan Burnett, 3-year deal, $14.5 million. But here's the bottom line with Pittsburgh. The window is closing, and I don't know if they can beat New England or Jacksonville. So the window will be shut by the time the Steelers actually try to figure things out here by beating Tom Brady or the Jaguars in that defense with Malik Jackson and Marcel Darius, Jalen Ramsey, etc. So Pittsburgh's at number 10. Steelers fans, come at me. Mr. Rogers99 on Twitter. Let's go to number 9 on my list. We've got the Green Bay Packers. They weren't in my top 10 prior to the draft, but here they are. And on the surface, I'll say this about the draft. I was not a fan of going cornerback, back-to-back, first round, and then the following. Jair Alexander and Josh Jackson, the more I look into them, I think they're incredible players. I just thought, yeah, I mean, cornerback was a need, but you could have also went edge rusher as well with Green Bay. But the more I zone in on this, you know what? I'm fine with it. I'm all right with it. I'm confident Mike Pettin, as a defensive coordinator, knows what he's doing here for Green Bay. Pettin loves his influx of cornerbacks because what he does is he likes to have them roam in the coverages that he creates. And I think Green Bay will have some confusing, very sneaky coverages in 2018. Packers also signed tight end Jimmy Graham to kind of revamp that offense at the tight end position. Green Bay has struggled there for many, many years. The Jermichael Finleys and the Jared Cooks and the Michael Bennett's of the world. Martellus Bennett, I should say, didn't really pan out at tight end. So, yeah, maybe Jimmy Graham can kind of help things there. I do really like their front seven for the Packers. Clay Matthews, still playing at a very high level. Mike Daniels at end. You got Kenny Clark at nose guard. Good player. Now Mo Wilkerson's in town. Blake Martinez, Jake Ryan, a couple of good young linebackers as well. The secondary is the concern. Kevin King struggled in his rookie campaign. But I think Mike Pettin is going to do a good job there in the back end, and the Packers will be better. And oh, by the way, there's Aaron Rodgers coming back from injury, probably fresh off of a big fat contract heading into 2018. Outside of Devontae Adams, though, I do have my concerns at wide receiver. Randall Cobb is just okay. We'll see what rookie Jamon Moore can do there out of Missouri. And also in terms of the offensive line, Lane Taylor and Justin McRae have to be a lot better. All right, so keep an eye out on that offensive line for Green Bay, particularly in pass protection. All right, so the Packers are there at number 9 in my power rankings. Let's go to number 8 on my list. I am really high on this team. And maybe it's the post-draft high, if you will. They had a fantastic draft. The Tennessee Titans check in at number 8. New head coach Mike Vrabel off to a great start. Rashaan Evans comes to town. That's a fantastic selection. Harold Landry, great value there at edge rusher. Vrabel is going to have a field day with this front seven. We're talking about Jarrell Casey and Derek Morgan and Brian Arakpo, Wesley Woodyard, Daquan Jones. These are some good players. This defense is going to be low-key solid. And I know Jacksonville Jaguars steal the headlines in terms of defense in that division, but Tennessee is pretty darn good too. Now, the big concern was the secondary going into this offseason, but Malcolm Butler comes to town. He'll help solidify things in that back end. Dory Jackson is a good cornerback, had a good year in his rookie campaign. And then the Titans have one of the more balanced offensive lines in the NFL. Jack Conklin, Taylor Lewan, making top 5 tackle duo in my opinion. You got Josh Klein and Ben Jones and Quentin Spain make a solid interior as well. And oh, by the way, new offensive coordinator, Matt LaFleur, who's a good offensive mind, coming over from L.A., the Rams, to be more specific, where he produced the Offensive Player of the Year in Todd Gurley and the #1 scoring offense, or at least helped in that process with the L.A. Rams there. So Marcus Mariota needs to improve a little bit, but all the pieces are in place for him to be successful. Offensive line, run game, wide receivers. We'll see what Corey Davis can do coming off his rookie campaign. But I'll tell you what, this team has the makings of a sleeper Super Bowl 53 candidate. I'm telling you that much. Tennessee Titans check in at number 8. Let's go to number 7, the Atlanta Falcons. Another team that had a great draft. Calvin Ridley at fantastic value. Isaiah Oliver will bolster that secondary even more. They already have Poole and Alford and Trufant, all good cornerbacks, so the rich get richer there. I think the Falcons may have the most balanced offensive roster in the NFL. Great quarterback center duo in Matt Ryan to Alex Mack. That's so important. An elite wide receiver in Julio Jones. Running back duo in Devontae Freeman and Tevin Coleman there. So I like them. I like where they're at. And I think the NFC South is going to be a dogfight. Keep an eye out on the Atlanta Falcons, though. Falcons, Panthers, Saints, they could all go to the playoffs. They check in at number 7, the Atlanta Falcons do. The Jacksonville Jaguars check in at number 6 here. Decent draft, but this is a team with very few glaring needs, in my opinion. We know what they can do in the back end with Jalen Ramsey and A.J. Boye and Barry Church. Good players. And then there's that front line with Malik Jackson and Calais Campbell. These guys are ferocious. Taven Bryan, the defensive tackle out of Florida, now in town, who they got via the draft. So I like this team. It all comes down to Blake Bortles, though. And if he can play like he did in that AFC Championship game throughout 2018, the Jaguars will be a team to be reckoned with. Now, you look at the wide receiver position. I'm a firm believer in Dante Moncrief. But after that, I'm not really sure who emerges at wide receiver number 2. Maybe Marquise Lee, DJ Shark, Keelan Cole, D.D. Westbrook. Really don't know. So it'll be interesting to see how that depth chart kind of shakes out for Jacksonville, but they're there at number 6. Let's go to number 5 on my list. Yeah, the New England Patriots. They're not high. I mean, they're only at number 5. And let me first say, it was a very odd draft to start. Isaiah Wynn at number 23 overall didn't make sense to me. I have no idea where he fits for 2018. The Sony Michel pick was just silly. Look at the depth chart for New England. They are crowded in the backfield. What are you doing getting Sony Michel there in that first round? Made no sense to me at all. But these are still the Pats. We're talking about Bill Belichick and Tom Brady and Robert Kraft. The trifecta, the power trio, if you will. And I think the offense will be fine. They'll be good. And we'll all see really how Cordell Patterson will play and Jordan Matthews, a couple of new additions there at wide receiver. Patterson probably more of a special teams guy. Then Adrian Claiborne coming on over from Atlanta. He'll be really important in terms of pass rushing ability for New England. You're getting Hightower back from injury as well at linebacker. As mentioned, the AFC is watered down. New England remains supreme in the AFC, in my opinion. But this is the highest I go with AFC teams, number 5. So there you go, New England Patriots, check in there. Let's go to number 4 on my list, the Minnesota Vikings. Unreal defense, we'll start there. Harrison Smith, Andrew Sandejo at safety, linebackers Anthony Barr and Eric Kendricks, great players. I can't find one weakness with that Minnesota Vikings defense, can't find one. Then Sheldon Richardson comes to town. And that, too, is a case of the rich getting richer. Already a great front line with Linval Joseph anchoring things there. Then there's the multi-million-dollar man, Kirk Cousins. And I think the pieces are in place for him to perform. Whether or not he does remains to be seen. He's got a good offensive coordinator there in John DeFilippo. DeFilippo did a pretty darn good job with Philadelphia. I think he'll do a good job with Minnesota as well. Stephon Diggs, Adam Thielen, Dalvin Cook coming back from injury. Minnesota is going to be a team to watch out for in the NFC playoffs. And then, of course, Super Bowl 53 if they get there. Let's go to number 3 on my list. The team the Vikings beat in the playoffs last season. The New Orleans Saints. And I think this team is going to make a couple of Super Bowl runs in 2018 and 2019, respectively. Love this team. First round selection of Marcus Davenport kind of didn't make sense. They traded up for him, but you know what? I'm not going to question Sean Payton and the front office staff there from New Orleans. This is them trying to make one final push with Drew Brees for the Super Bowl. So it's Davenport, it's Okafor, it's Cam Jordan coming around the edge. Good pass rush there. A premier secondary with Marshawn Lattimore and Ken Crawley and, of course, Patrick Robinson there at slot corner. The good news for Drew Brees as he gets older, he's not going to be needed as much. Alvin Kamara is there. Mark Ingram is there. They can carry the load as Drew Brees continues to age. He's 39 years old, going on 40 eventually, right? So eventually there are going to be games where Drew Brees may just fatigue or get tired or whatever. Then it's time for Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram to go off, and I think they can do that. So I think Michael Thomas, on the other hand, is really developing into an elite wide receiver. He's not there yet, but he's getting there. I mean, he shined in 2017. Very popular fantasy football option, I would think, for next season as well. So the Saints, certainly a team that'll be in the mix in the NFL playoffs next season. They check in at number 3. Let's go to number 2, the team that won the offseason, the Los Angeles Rams. And claps to you, General Manager Les Snead. He went off, and he acquired some big-time names. Marcus Peters, Aqib Talib. We're talking about a secondary now that could be the best in the NFC, with Johnson there at safety, LaMarcus Joyner there as well, Roby Coleman at slot corner. Really good back end there for LA. Plus, he got Ndamukong Suh. I mean, it's unbelievable to think that Suh and Aaron Donald are going to be on the same defensive line. And then you get Brandon Cooks at wide receiver. So Cooper Kupp, Brandon Cooks, Robert Woods off the play action with Todd Gurley playing running back. I mean, there is no reason for the Rams to not get a 1 or 2 seed in the NFC because they have made some fantastic moves, and they are setting themselves up to be a really good team. And I'm talking about the defense a lot here. The offense was number 1 in scoring a year ago. I think there is potential for the Rams to finish number 1 in scoring defense and number 1 in scoring offense in 2018 in the regular season. That's how high I am on this team. But I do give the respect to the champs, the Philadelphia Eagles. And that's why I keep them at number 1. At least for the remainder of, I guess, the early part of the offseason, the midway part of the offseason. My logic is with these power rankings, you have to keep the defending champions at number 1. Unless crazy stuff happens and big-time cuts occur and all this stuff. Nothing too crazy happened with Philadelphia in terms of losing players. In fact, that defensive line is going to be scary good. Talking about Fletcher Cox and Timmy Jernigan, who comes back from back injury, recently had back surgery. And Michael Bennett, we'll see if he can fend off any of these legal issues as well. So the front line is not the problem. The offensive line is not the problem either. Brandon Brooks there at guard. Kelsey at center. He's a good player. Jason Peters coming back from injury at left tackle. And then, oh, by the way, they get Dallas Goedert via the draft, a tight end there who certainly fills a need. So things are still just fine for the Philadelphia Eagles here, the defending champions. Of course, the big question is, how does Carson Wentz come back from that ACL injury? That is the major question mark, because ACLs can change you. Now, it could be just kind of a Tom Brady situation. It took some time for Tom Brady to get back to his MVP-type form, but he got there after his ACL injury way back when, like 10 years ago. So we'll see what happens with Carson Wentz. It sounds like he's okay with not even playing in the preseason. If you go back and listen to some of his recent statements, he feels like he doesn't need that kind of repetition there to get ready for the NFL season. Not so sure about that, Carson Wentz, considering Joe Flacco missed the entire preseason a year ago, and it took him a lot of time. In fact, kind of took him the whole season to get his bearings down. So obviously Carson Wentz and Joe Flacco are 2 different quarterbacks at this juncture. But Philadelphia at number 1, really good team. Kind of wish they kept Patrick Robinson, had a great year at slot corner, but it would have been really difficult to do it, especially with the salary cap situation that the Eagles were in. They were not in the greatest salary cap position in the world, but they'll be just fine. Good wide receivers too. Nelson Aguilar, really starting to pan out well. Alshon Jeffrey had a good resurgence a year ago too. So Philadelphia checks in at number 1 in my NFL power rankings. Let's summarize my entire list, ladies and gentlemen. If you're just tuning into the Cam Rogers Show, my top 10 NFL power rankings post-draft edition. Let's take a look at 6 through 10 here. The Jags at number 6. Atlanta at 7. Then the Tennessee Titans at 8. Really high on this team, ladies and gentlemen. Green Bay at number 9. The Pittsburgh Steelers check in at number 10. Let's go to 1 through 5 here. Checking in at number 1, the Philadelphia Eagles. The LA Rams at 2. The Saints at number 3. The Vikings at number 4. And then the New England Patriots there at number 5. As you take a look at the summary presented by Game Time, here are the teams that just missed the cut. If you're wondering about your team, you didn't see them there in the top 10. Got the 49ers just on the outside looking in. I am a big fan of what they can do. I think the offensive line is starting to come together. That secondary is scary good compared to, last year, which was one of the weaknesses for the 49ers. Richard Sherman now in town. Keller Witherspoon had a good rookie campaign. You got the LA Chargers, too. A sneaky Super Bowl candidate with Bosa and Ingram. And Derwin James now coming to town at safety. Trey Boston probably moving on to another team, and he's still looking for a new team, which is interesting. Really like the LA Chargers. We'll see how the offensive line holds up. Carolina at 13. I think they performed a little better in the record column in 2017 compared to, what they actually deserved. I think probably they played 9-7 type of football a year ago, but a couple of ugly games allowed them to win. The Baltimore Ravens are at 14. Keep an eye on Baltimore. I think Joe Flacco is going to be in for a much better campaign, especially with Lamar Jackson kind of right there behind him, giving him the pressure there. And then the Houston Texans at number 15.